Wenxiu was born into a declining family in 1909. At 8 years old, she was sent to a private school in Beijing. Wenxiu was clever and studied well. In 1922, the young Emperor Puyi had to get married. When Wenxiu's uncle and mother knew about it, they decided to enroll Wenxiu in the Empress selection. On the selection day, the Dowager Consort selected the final 4 girls for Puyi to choose from and showed Puyi their photos. Wenxiu was one of these girls. But the photo quality was not good enough. When Puyi looked at the photos, he thought every girl looked very similar. He then randomly selected one of them. The selected girl was Wenxiu. But the decision was opposed by one of the consorts. The consort recommended another beautiful girl, Wanrong, who was at the same age as Puyi, and she was from a prominent family. Puyi was annoyed by the argument and agreed to select Wanrong as the empress. The first selected girl, Wenxiu, would also be his secondary consort. After the marriage, Wenxiu began living in the palace of eternal spring. However, Puyi rarely spent time with Wenxiu. Puyi liked the Empress Wanrong more and found her company more enchanting. Every morning, after grooming, Wenxiu greeted the emperor, the dowager consort, and the empress at their palaces. Then she went back to her place. To spend her time, she loved hand-stitching, reading, and writing. She was polite and very kind to the servants. Sometimes she even taught the ladies-in-waiting how to read. Wenxiu was never in the favor of the emperor. Surely her relationship with the empress was competitive, but initially it was not that bad. Sometimes they wrote letters to each other in the palace. In the letters, Wanrong used her English name Elizabeth and Wenxiu used the name Eileen. The letters were usually mixed with Chinese and English words. One of Wanrong's letters said, "I received your letter yesterday. I know that your heart illness has almost been recovered. I'm glad. And please don't always remember my mistakes." In 1924, the warlord Feng Yuexiang seized control of Beijing and banished Puyi and the imperial family out of the palace. After being exiled, Puyi, Wanrong, and Wenxiu moved to Tianjin and later settled in a quiet garden villa where they lived in peace for some time. The family continued to live luxuriously in the villa. Puyi and Wanrong lived together on the second floor, while Wenxiu lived on the first floor. In Tianjin, Puyi was always accompanied by Wanrong and frequently took her to the theater to enjoy operas. On the contrary, he spent very little time with Wenxiu. Wanrong was a shopaholic. She also competed with Wenxiu in this matter. When Puyi purchased something for one of them, the other would ask him to buy for her as well. But Puyi always supported Wanrong. One day, Wenxiu was very unhappy and she stabbed in her stomach with a knife. A eunuch reported that to Puyi immediately. But Puyi did not sympathize. Instead, he said it was a trick as usual, just ignore her. In 1931, Wenxiu could no longer endure the ignorance from Puyi. She was dissatisfied with her life. She then secretly planned a divorce. With the assistance from her sister, Wenxiu got an opportunity to leave the villa. They stayed in the hotel and consulted 3 lawyers. She finally filed for a divorce in August 1931. Puyi was shocked and he was not willing to accept it, but Wenxiu was very decisive. Puyi did not want the case to go to court. So in October, they finally reached a compromise. Puyi agreed on the divorce, but there was another precondition that Wenxiu could never marry again. Wenxiu was desperate to leave this man, so she accepted the terms. Wenxiu was given 55,000 silver dollars as alimony. Puyi then posted in newspaper that Wenxiu left without permission. She was deposed from all imperial titles. After the divorce, Wenxiu came home to visit her family. Then she realized that her mother had already died. She was disapproved by her uncle and other family members. They even criticized her in the newspaper for divorcing Puyi. They said she should endure anything to repay the kindness of the Qing dynasty, and her action was ridiculous. Within the whole family, only her sister supported her and respected for her decision. Unable to come back home, Wenxiu moved to a new house and hired several servants. With the alimony given by Puyi, she was able to lead a comfortable life. Later, Wenxiu discreetly became a Chinese and painting teacher in a primary school in Beijing. However, soon her colleagues discovered that she was the previous consort of Emperor Puyi. People became curious of her life and kept bothering her. Every day, many reporters came to her school to ask to interview her. Because Wenxiu was under increasing pressure, she finally quit the job and left the school. At the time, Wenxiu was only 24 years old. Without a job, she stayed in her house all the time, but she soon realized that her money was seriously depleted. She could no longer sustain a decent life, so she started to sell her jewelries. Later, to earn money, she even sold cigarettes in the streets. In 1947, under the introduction from a friend, Wenxiu got a proofreading job in a newspaper company. She was detail-minded and diligent. Her boss thought Wenxiu was a good woman, so he introduced her to an army official, Liu Zhendong. He was already 40 years old, but because of his busy job, he stayed single for many years. The two soon fell in love, and for him, Wenxiu broke the promise to stay single after her divorce with Puyi. In the same year, they got married and held a lavish wedding party in a well-known restaurant. Wenxiu became a housewife to take care of the family. They led a decent life for some time. Unfortunately, just after a few years, because of political changes, the couples went bankrupt. Wenxiu's husband later found a cleaning job. The couples moved to a small flat. They lived poorly but happily. On 7th of September 1953, Wenxiu died from heart disease. Her husband was staying with her in the final moments. At the beginning, Wenxiu was arranged to marry into the royal family. Although she had a status and wealth that the others might be envious of, she was never happy. Only after she took the courage to leave the emperor, she could finally be herself and live her own life.